Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody this evening. Thank you for coming, allowing us to have your association. This is a little high-pitched. I think that's the word. An echo. echoey almost. Maybe, Nitai Prabhu, you can bring some Bhagavad Gitas. Bring three or four new ones and one old one, or two old ones. Anyway, Premanava, you just came back?
Yeah.
He's been out all day long with Balamina.
Balamina.
He went to Balamina. And what were you doing in Balamina? It's still kind of really high. Turn it down, much too loud. I've got a whisper.
Is it too loud or?
Well, it's too loud and it's too kind of woo. Make it straightforward.
That's the
Simple,
new
straight.
one.
They have covers on. They have plastic bags on.
That's an old one.
Yeah, but they have,
This.
yeah, that's the one.
Ah, okay.
And you can share, there's some here which we can share also. So what were you doing in Balamina? Shopping? Sightseeing?
You know, so much you
Yes, he was in Balamina. That's the book. And he was visiting people, going shop to shop and showing people Bhagavad Gita. In fact, yesterday we were in the city, means myself and Alex and Mahananda, who just stepped out. We were chanting Hare Krishna in the centre of Belfast today. And one lady, elderly lady, very old, she laughed. She went by and we offered her a little magazine. She said, no, I've already got it. One of you came to my house a few nights ago. She gave her in her house. This is, you could say, our desire is to see that everyone gets the chance. They may wish to not take it, they may wish to take it or not, it's up to them. But at least a chance to have the opportunity to hear a little bit about, let's say, our spiritual lives. I may have on your mobile, if you have a book, great. This is Bhagavad Gita. I think everyone's heard of Bhagavad Gita, have we? Teresa, you've heard of Bhagavad Gita? You have one at home, do you? You have Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah, like a sort of simple version, I guess.
Not this one? You don't have this one?
No, I don't have that one.
Oh, that's the full version.
Okay.
The small one is generally not complete. It's just either a summary or just the verses.
Okay.
It doesn't give you could say, the inner realization or inner aspect of the verses quite often. But this version here, no doubt there are many, hundreds of versions. It's still very, very. Why is it like that? Is that the way it is? Okay, we'll try to manage.
Do you want me to decrease the volume?
I don't know. I'm speaking very lowly because it's.
Maybe
Too sensitive.
maybe when the phone comes nearby, I don't know.
No, I think it's just the high. It's a high pitch. It's a very high. Never mind.
You see the treble and everything.
Hearing you may. It's just this kind of like. And I'm afraid to speak loudly because it's going to go boom like that. You know. Maybe it won't. Hare Krishna. Well, it's not too bad. Okay, so many versions of this book have been translated and all over the world in different languages and through the ages also from the original language, which is called Sanskrit. Perhaps if you've got the book, you may have this. I don't know which book you've got. But this is the original written Sanskrit, a very beautiful language in which all the ancient teachings, you could say, at least what we call the Vedas. Veda means knowledge. The books of India are called Vedas. Veda means knowledge, literally. That's basically what it means. It's not a religion as such. It's not some kind of somebody's philosophical invention. It means that which is absolute, that which is real. It doesn't change. It's Veda. It means knowledge, something which is always there. You could think of some material knowledge, some which is like a permanent knowledge, maybe, I don't know, law of gravity, maybe, I don't know. Something like that, which remains throughout time, in all space, everything. So this is knowledge, not just of the material, it's mostly knowledge of how we can understand the spiritual aspect of life. In other words, how we can understand ourselves and why we're here and what the best thing we could do while we're here. There's many things we could do, and we try to do many things, but this is to help us to see there's a little more to do, or more to life than meets the eye, so to speak. And it helps us to open up our inner vision, our spiritual understanding of life itself, origins of life, goals of life. Who are we? Who's the supreme? Do we have a relationship? What is this material nature? And how does time act on us all? In the form of, everything has a beginning and an end, and all things must pass, and how the law of karma works. All these and many other subjects, reincarnation, and so on, are discussed in this amazing dialogue between Krishna and his most intimate friend, who is taking the part of a disciple, basically. So he's asking questions, relevant questions, so that we can hear the conversation. It's always good when there's knowledge, when it's like a conversation form. It kind of helps us to keep, let's say, focused, and it reminds us of many of the questions we may have also. So this 18 chapters, and why this version is very special. Our spiritual teacher 100 years ago received the direction to preach this message in the Western world, in English particularly, and he came to the Western world in 1965, and then he began to preach. And the Bhagavad Gita was, you could say, the foundation of our movement, of our teaching. It's the basic directions, basic knowledge, and so on and so forth. So it's written originally in this beautiful language called Sanskrit, which, believe it or not, I was many years ago, 45 years ago, I was going around the country from in the colleges and universities, and we're just meeting professors and so on, Hare Krishna, for meeting professors in universities in England and showing them Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures. And many times we come across teachers or professors of linguistics, means the science of language, and almost every one of them concludes that the Sanskrit language is the oldest known language on the planet, and is more or less a common understanding amongst them that other languages have derived from the Sanskrit. Indian languages, also European languages, derive from Sanskrit. Many of the European languages still have a lot of closeness to Sanskrit. Hungarian, for instance, is quite close to Sanskrit. Finnish, a lot of relationship with Finnish language and Hungarian, and maybe a little less with the languages of Slovakia and other countries in Eastern Europe particularly. But we see many words have come through, even in the Roman and Greek cultures, from ancient Sanskrit, or the ancient culture. And when we go to other parts of the world, perhaps in Americas, the ancient cultures there, the Aztecs, Incas, Mayans, and so on, so many of their practices are akin with the practices of the ancient, we'll call it ancient, but the culture of India many thousands and thousands of years ago, according to Indian history. The same applies to the Druids, if you've heard of the Druids, and probably in Ireland too. The Druids were in Ireland? They were also here. West Country, Ireland, West Wales, and so on. And many things. I have one friend who is from Wales, and his brother is one of the 4 experts in ancient Druid culture, and knows the alphabet, the language, everything, their ancient teachings, everything. And his brother is not a member of the Hare Krishnas. He's a normal person in society, but he's a scholar of of Druid culture and history and so on. And he's amazed how much connection he says there is between their cultures, the different cultures of the world. He said, especially with the Vedic culture, they were connected. The pharaohs in Egypt, the pyramids and so on, all that whole culture there. So much connection was there. They didn't have modern social media. They had different methods of communication, maybe a little bit more sort of refined and subtle than ours perhaps. But there was a lot of connection between cultures of the world. They weren't perhaps seen in our light as being very advanced in some ways, yet we marvel at how such structures as the pyramids or the temples in Central America, the Aztecs and Incas, even the Stonehenge. I was born just near Stonehenge. These things sometimes create almost like bewilderment. How on earth did they do it? What to speak of some of the amazing structures of church? Well, it's a little bit more recent, isn't it? But even the churches. I was talking to a lady from Cologne, or Cologne, in English we call Cologne. I think maybe here yesterday. I'm not sure. Maybe I can't remember, last day or two. So I was talking to them. There's one church. Has anyone been to Cologne or Clun in Germany? No, there's a church there which it's almost impossible to work out how on earth they made that church. They had no cranes. They had no modern technology. We can't do it with all of our cranes. Isn't it amazing? We have all our modern technology. Where do we build such buildings? We don't. Where do you see temples like in South India? Some of you are from South India? Who's from South India? Which part?
Like South part, Andhra Pradesh.
Andhra?
Yeah.
Andhra Pradesh. Well, you have Tirupati. You have many, many beautiful temples there in Andhra Pradesh. Singhachalam.
Srirangam.
Srirangam's in Tamil Nadu.
Yeah.
Tamil Nadu. But in Andhra we have Singhachalam and Tirupati and many other temples are there. Beautiful temples built on hills, high up in the hills. Oh, like it's amazing structures. What to speak of in Tamil Nadu with some amazing buildings. You mentioned one there, Srirangam, Madurai, Rameshwaram. So many incredible structures. Inconceivable how they made them. It's almost like defying the laws of logic. Incredible. Everywhere around the world you see these things. There's university there now, according to the anthropologists, the architects in I think in Kashmir or Punjab or somewhere up there, they've discovered an incredible remains of what appears to be a university, big university complex, which they estimate is at least 7,000 years old. And then at the same time they talk about an Aboriginal culture. It's so contradictory. They were cultures, they were very cultured, but they weren't so interested perhaps in aspects that we are interested in. Mostly we're interested in material, whatever. Messing around with the material energies in various ways to try to get external pleasure. But their endeavor was more emphasized on internal. I remember one time I was in the United States, I mentioned this to you last week maybe, came up. I was traveling with one in a bus, and the man next to me was a professor. He was Indian. He was Red Indian. You know what Red Indians are? We have Indian Indians, but what are Red Indians? Are they Indians who are red color? No. What are they? Why do we call them Red Indians? You know what they are. I'm from North America, right?
Like native Indians.
Pardon?
Like native.
Native Indians, like the Sioux tribe, the Apache, the Cherokee, whatever. Different tribes who were there, living in America for generation after generation after generation. And then, of course, the Europeans came and said, we discovered America. It was already there, by the way. And there were millions and millions and millions of people living there for thousands of years, quite peacefully in most cases. Of course, that all changed when the Europeans came in. Most of them were killed. They estimated 80 million were slaughtered. That's the estimate. Millions of Aborigines were slaughtered in Australia. Everywhere they went, slaughter, slaughter, slaughter. Destroy the culture. Destroy, destroy, and establish what we think is culture. Unfortunately, a lot of this has been lost. But anyway, of course, he's westernized. He was teaching in the university in America, teaching the history of he's North American, Indian history and culture and so on and so forth. So we were just talking about their culture a little bit because I was fascinated. Because when I was a child, I was very interested in the Sioux tribe, which happened to descend from the place where he was from. He was a chieftain, obviously not acting as one, but officially he would have been like the lord. We have lords sometimes, something like that. I don't know what you have in Ireland, but in England they have lords of districts and so on. So he was a chieftain of the tribe, which can be dispensed or distant gone, but he's like the chief of that group, and he knew as much as anyone. So he was telling me that we may not believe this, but this is what he said. He said that because the Sioux tribe, they worship, they have very fine worship, but they believe in reincarnation. He said that one of the first things he said. Yes, we believe in reincarnation. We're not this body, he said. Now, we're in the Western culture, we have that much understanding, not that often. And, supposed to be uncivilized. So yes, we believe in it. Whenever we have to eat, whenever we kill something, we say prayers because there's a living entity in there. We never know who it is. It might even be one of my relatives. So we always offer respect. Very simplistic. They have a symbol which is called a totem pole. Have you heard of a totem pole? You heard this term, totem pole? Now in the Sioux tribe, their totem pole has an eagle on top. Now in India, South India also, you see there's something called the Stamba. What is it? Garuda Stamba. And who's the Garuda?
Eagle.
He's an eagle on top of a pole. And he said, not me, he said, this came from India. This symbol. He said it came from India 20,000 years ago. Those were his words. I was shocked. They had completely different history to what we believe, what we hear. We have zero proof. We simply accept or don't accept. Whatever they're pushed into us in our education, what chance do we have of testing it? There is zero evidence of evolution. Zero. Zero. We have no proof how far any planet is from this planet. Zero. Right? We have zero idea what happened, why we're born where we're born. Right? We have zero idea what happens to us when we die. Not very much knowledge is around us, but we believe it. Science, which is a very recent creation. A couple of seconds ago it appeared in history. And in a few seconds' time it will be gone. Finished. It's just a temporary bluff. Simple as that. Knowledge never changes. It's eternal. You, I, everyone is eternal. The material world, the energy is eternal. It's just constantly changing. It's changing because of karma. And because we don't want to accept responsibility, we come up with other philosophies to try to deny the responsibility of human or the living entity. We are responsible for our situation. It's a wonderful thing, actually, because we can change our direction. We can change it. We can't change it on our own. They're very easily, very hard. So therefore there are directions, guidelines, how we can understand this in a deeper way, in a much broader way. Much broader way. He also said, besides that, the whole culture came from India, because this totem pole has the eagle on top. He said, it's like the Garuda Stamba in India. He studied all the different religions of the world. Equated it to it. Their customs, everything originated from India. Although it's a diversion in many ways, but it has its origins there. Now India is just a tract of land, whatever it may be. Whether it's Israel or India or wherever, it doesn't matter. Arabia. Different, you could say, insights appear in different parts of the world. It's not a question of Indian knowledge or Arabian knowledge or Jewish knowledge or any kind of knowledge come to that, named like that. Knowledge is knowledge. And the same truth appears to different degrees. Science also has a quest for understanding, you could say, but it's missing an essential ingredient, the spiritual ingredient, without which you go round in circles and come to no final conclusion. You may not come to any conclusion, but it's not a final one. Ever searching. So real science means that which is a fact, and hardly Everything, most things are just theories which change through time. Anyway, getting off that point, we will get back to the Bhagavad Gita, the science. Prabhupada describes this as the science of spiritual life. It's a spiritual science. Spiritual science. We just have to... I saw many places around town today, where we saw, was it when we were coming into the town we saw those signs? Open your eyes. There's signs all over the place. Open your eyes. Have you seen them? Maybe you're all walking around with your eyes closed. I was thinking, you won't be able to see it if you haven't got your eyes open. So it's a kind of a funny sign, isn't it? Signs all over the road, 6 or 7 times I saw it in the city centre. Open your eyes. Now if you haven't got your eyes open, you're not going to see it. So if you read it... Huh?
It was here on the bus stop.
It was on the bus stop also here, and many places it was scattered around. Open your eyes. So it's like that. The idea is that if we have our eyes closed, I don't see anything. There's nothing there. No. Yeah, no one has any form. There's nothing there. It's just all dark. There's some noises in the dark. Sometimes I bump into somebody, so there's probably something in there. But you can't see it. It's very... Your eyes are closed. What can we see if our eyes are closed? So in spiritually speaking too, it's a matter of a little bit like opening our eyes. It's not just a matter of, making up something. It's opening our eyes and seeing things in a different light. It's amazing. So Bhagavad Gita gives us this chance to see things in a different light. It's not that the book gives us, the teachings. And if we apply it, it's like anything. Cooking, if we apply the recipe, we might get the preparation. Today we had beautiful lunch at Alex and Anusha's house. And Anusha cooked, apple crumble? Apple crumble and custard. Typical English preparation. You have that in Ireland? Apple crumble and custard? Teresa, you have it here? Yeah. It's kind of quite popular. Yeah, you know that one? Yeah. Apple crumble. Very nice. Taste, we like to taste. It's natural. Every living entity likes to taste. Every living entity is because their nature. It's not the body as the vehicle through which we taste. It's not the body wants to taste. The living entity wants to taste, and the body is a good vehicle to experience various tastes. Every living entity, whatever body we're in, likes to taste things. It likes to enjoy things. It likes to be happy, you could say. In Sanskrit it's called Anandamoya Abhyasat. Every living entity is looking for pleasure. Everyone. So happiness is you could say a common denominator, or the search for happiness is a common denominator between all living entities, no matter who they are. Where we get happiness from may vary. Some people in different influences of the material nature due to their karma get happiness from what we would call horrible things, maybe even cruel things, violence, different nasty, we would say not pleasant things at all, but there's a certain type of pleasure that certain persons under certain influences experience. And not most people, but some people. Most people are either neutral or influenced by goodness and passion, but some people are a little bit more by ignorance or gross forms of activity. But whatever it is, different living entities, animal species, bird species, fish species, everyone is looking for some satisfaction, some pleasure, sensual pleasure. So the body, whatever body we have, is a vehicle or an instrument to try to fulfill our desires for pleasure. We travel the world. We sometimes like to go beyond the world. Oh, how nice it would be to go into space to see what's on that star up there. I used to think like that when I was a kid. Still sometimes do. It's kind of looking up into this clear sky with all the millions of stars everywhere. It's quite, it is mystical. It's not quite mystical, it simply is mystical. Or even other places on the planet. But then we don't even know what's really going on in our own bodies. It's quite phenomenal. We hardly know. We say with the body, but we hardly know much about our own body, how it really works. We just take it for granted mostly. Little knowledge is there in the medical world and the scientific world, but not very much on its actual workings, considering how intricate this body is, how very complex. Even one cell is so complex. It's an amazing, you could say, manifestation, phenomena. Incredible. So amazing. No one, none of us can even conceive, even in scientific realms, how to make a body. We're very easy to destroy a body, try to maintain a body, but to make a body, oh, that's not so easy. Not even a cell, what to speak of a body. Very difficult. So I'm going to read a little bit now from the Bhagavad Gita. If you like to open or refer to the Bhagavad Gita, let's see, where are we? We're in very simple. Well, I'm going to read something very simple. It's good to remind ourselves of the basics, I think. Sometimes we like to talk on this thing and that thing. So I'm going to go to text number 13 onwards in the second chapter. Chapter 2, text 13. Onwards. Now, up to this point, it's been a little, mostly the devotee of Krishna named Arjuna has been speaking, and he's been trying to justify his own decision. He's decided not to perform his duty, which is a very kind of, you could say, a questionable situation from our material perspective, but his duty is that he was a king. He was obliged to take part in a battle. He didn't want to take part. He gave many, many different reasons why not. To the point where he decided, I'm not going to take part. Some of his family were on the opposition side. His teacher was on the opposite side. Friends were on the opposite side. Why should I fight? I don't want to, how can I enjoy if, even if we win? I will not be happy when so many persons' lives are being sacrificed like this. Materially you can understand. In any case, who's right and wrong? How do we know? I'll incur sinful reactions by this. And the whole society will be disturbed. Senior people in society may get killed, so many things. Society may become very degraded. He was arguing in so many materially wonderful ways, even stating scriptural injunctions and so on. And eventually he came to the conclusion, despite that, there was something he was missing. He wasn't feeling very complete, very satisfied what to do. And he asked Krishna, please tell me clearly, what should I really do? What is the proper thing to do here? Now, not just from the material point of view. And it's hard when we're in the material world to see beyond this, because in the material world, we tend to think in terms of material situations, and forgetting, or not even aware of, the fact that human life can and should be for a higher purpose. It's understanding the spiritual, or getting release from the conditioning of material existence. So he's forgetting the fact that he is a spirit soul. This is the root, let's say, of our ignorance, is forgetting our identity and identifying ourselves with the body as a self, and forgetting our spiritual self. So without remembering the spiritual self and what is the highest purpose of human life, to realize our spiritual identity and the relationship we have with the Supreme Being, this is the real purpose. And it's not just to make a comfortable situation. It's not even just about behaving nicely, because that will not release us from the material world. It may improve our situation in the world we're in, or the material world itself, but it doesn't release us. So Krishna now begins to give directions how we can see things from another angle. So I'll start with text number 12, actually, not 13, the one before. Krishna says, Arjuna, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Never was there a time. That means never. That means eternally we've existed. Not in this body, but the conscious being who resides in this body is eternal. And the next verse, Krishna says, as the embodied soul passes continuously in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Krishna. Amazing. Well, straight away, Krishna doesn't, he gets straight in there, doesn't he? Arjuna's put forward all these wonderful, you could say, arguments from a material perspective. Good ones. All the best you can think, practically. Compassionate. So many compassionate statements from the material point of view. But Krishna gets straight in there. In fact, in text 11, Krishna says, while speaking learned words, Arjuna, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. The wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. That sounds a little bit heartless, doesn't it? The wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. Sounds callous, you don't care. That's not what it means. Naturally we have compassion. Everyone to some degree has compassion to that which we identify with, be it your dog, your family members, your country, whatever, your religion. Naturally it's there. So what does he mean? He's referring to the wise being those who see the nature of the soul, the difference between spirit and matter. Not from the material point of view, this is not a statement which makes any sense, or don't agree with it at all. That's naturally understood it from the material point of view. But even if we do, you say, accept, yes, we're this body, you should be compassionate for the body, which we are also, we should be also. But ultimately, that compassion doesn't save anyone. It's like the compassion one has. Say, for instance, our teacher sometimes gives a simple example. We used to do the drama. The drowning man. This example? Somebody is drowning in the ocean. Help! Help! We used to do this on the street. Street drama in the old days. Help! Save me! Save me! He's out there in the ocean, drowning. And somebody, yes, I will save him, I will save him. And someone dives in, swims out, and grabs his hat, grabs his coat, grabs his pants, his shoes, and swims back to the shore. I saved him! Here's his hat, here's his coat, his shoes, everything, his shirt. I saved him. Wait a minute, you haven't saved him, that's his clothes. No, I've saved him. Oh, it's kind of a simplistic example. It's a little bit like that. This body is described actually by Krishna as a garment. It's a coat around the soul, around the mind, and the mind is another coat around the soul. So we're trying to save the coat. Or another example is the bird in the cage. Some of you, I don't know, maybe no one here has a bird, pet bird or something. When I was a kid, we had a bird, a budgerigard in the cage. So, the budger's stuck in the cage. When you think of it, it's not a very nice thing. Of course, we let him out and fly around the room a little bit, but it's not very nice. So if you keep him in the cage, is the goal just to decorate the cage, paint the cage, clean the cage, put different items, decorations in the cage, brush his feathers? Is that the goal? What will happen if that's all you do? What will happen to the bird?
Just die.
Eventually he'll die. You've got to feed the bird. If you don't feed the bird, you'll die. The bird is the main thing, not the cage, not even the feathers, the bird inside. You've got to feed the bird. So we're not feeding ourselves, we're feeding the body. We're sometimes trying to feed the mind, but we're not feeding the soul. We're not getting spiritual nutrition. And we're drying up, and we get fearful. Because we're losing the body, and the body is just like, the feathers of a bird or the skin of crocodile, whatever it is a body. It's made of material elements. And we're working so hard to try to keep them together. It's a futile attempt because it does not work. No way you're going to save this body. Who was that? Walt Disney? Is it Walt Disney? Was he the one for the Disneyland, right? He had his body put into some deep freeze or something, hoping that in the future science would find a way of, perpetuating life or something, and they'd bring him back to life. It didn't work. I don't know what happened. Someone pulled the plug out of the thing. I don't know what happened. But 50, 60 years ago, anyone here remember in the 50s? Krishna could tell, maybe you can help.
Not that old.
Well, I'm older than you.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I remember late 50s, let's put it a bit clearer, maybe late 50s, it was the big scientific thing, you know, that very soon we're going to make you eternal. You're already eternal, by the way, but they're talking about your body. They're going to make you eternal. You know, I don't know if they still talk about it. I'm not in privy to the latest scientific jargon. But I never hear anyone talk about it much these days. It was a big thing. Another big thing in the 50s and early 60s, they said science is advancing so rapidly that very soon, you know, there will be no, you won't have to worry about anything. There'll be, you know, you won't know what to do with your time. You have so much spare time because, you know, science is going to be able to do everything. The machines, the robots or whatever it is, will do everything. Well, to a certain extent that's going on. But when I was a kid, not many ladies were working in England, by the way. Most ladies were staying at home. Now most ladies are working. Men are working. They're working overtime. They have less time now than they had. This is in the scientific journal. They analysed it 50 years later. They said, amazingly enough, despite all of our advancement, people have less time now than they had in the 50s. Yeah? We do all these things to save time, and we're busier now than we were in the 50s. It's incredible. It doesn't solve the purpose at all. And generally speaking, I mean, who can say? But I mean, I can only say from my perspective on this one. But there's so much more mental distress and anxiety than there seemed to be in those days. So much stress. So many places and efforts to release people of stress. So many drugs are being taken to counteract stress, isn't it? Depression. So much depression. I would imagine everyone in this room, to some extent, has experienced depression. To some extent or another. Now, that's nothing unusual. But it's become such a common phenomenon, and it's like a whole sector of society just basically based upon dealing with stress. And it's based on this ignorance of misunderstanding our identity. Now, if you go on the street, and you say, who are you? And someone says, I don't know. I don't know who I am. Now, maybe they're a spiritualist, or maybe they're a little bit, you know, whatever. Called crazy, I suppose. Whatever it is. But generally, people will give you an answer. They'll say, I am, who am I? I'm, well, who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
Me?
What's your name?
Peter.
Peter. You're Peter what?
Gardner.
Peter Gardner?
Yeah.
Something like that. Well, is that what you are? Are you? I'm Peter Gardner. Who are you? Who are you? I'm Peter Gardner. I'm what are you? You're a salesman. I'm a salesman. I'm from Ireland. I'm Irish. I'm a Catholic. I'm a Christian. I'm a Hindu or whatever that is. And what else do we say? Who am I? I'm God? That's a pretty big one, isn't it?
No.
Girl.
I'm God. If you say you're God, even ordinary people will think you're crazy. Well, not, and maybe not in India sometimes. There's some philosophers they think we're God. Yeah.
A girl or a boy, Maharaj?
A girl or a boy? You know who you are? Which one you are?
Mataji said she's a girl.
Oh, you're a girl. Okay, you're a girl. That's good, at least you know that. Some people don't know that either. But all these things are temporary. You can even change that, you know. Now even gender, there's systems, I met many people. Not still the same person, but the body has changed. Or you can change your religion, you can change many things you can change. Your job, your name, your this, your that. Maybe the body you can't change too much, but that changes automatically anyway. But these identities are just temporary labels, you know. They're just temporary, you know. You have to have them, names, this thing, for relationship, but they're not our permanent identity. Our permanent identity is, anyone can see that's a changing identity. We can't say that's permanent. You know, you say, I'm a Hindu, but then you can become a Christian or an atheist, huh? So what are you now? Well, you told me you were Hindu last time. You're not the same person. Now you're an atheist. Or last time you were a man, now you're a woman. What are you? You know, these things are just temporary definitions for present situation. But here we're looking at the more permanent situation. So if we only look at the present one, then definitely we're going to feel, disturbed when things happen. But if we understand the eternal one, or the spiritual nature, then the changing of the body is unavoidable. Suffering is unavoidable. As the embodied soul, we read that one just now, we can't avoid that changing of the body. In text 14, Krishna says, O son of Kunti, that's the name of Krishna. Kunteya means son of Krishna. That's son of Kunti, rather. The non-permanent appearance, of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. If we look at it like that, you can't do much about the seasons. They may not be so well defined, but the weather's always changing. Today it changed, I don't know how many times it changed today. It was on and off, sun, rain, wind, calm, different things going on. A little cold, a little warm, changing constantly. It's the nature of the material world. Non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress are the same. They're compared to the disappearance in due course, and their disappearance are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer. They arise from sense perception, material sense perception. O sky of Bharat, that's another name of Arjuna. And one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. That's a pretty not so easy thing, isn't it? To tolerate the disturbances, the unavoidable disturbances of the material world. Not that we should try to cause a disturbance, not that we should be, let's say, callous or inactive in the face of them, but when it means tolerate, that means they're going to go on, and we shouldn't get completely swept away by the dualities of this world. We should try to be equipoised, undisturbed by it. But again, that's easy to say, hard to do. O best among men, in text 15, Arjuna, best among men, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress, and is steady in both, is certainly eligible for liberation. So straight away, Krishna is giving here to Arjuna what's called Gyan. Gyan means another name of, we mentioned earlier, the Vidya, Veda, different names for knowledge. Gyan is another name for knowledge, Jnana, study of the phenomena, and trying to understand the truth behind it, Gyan. So this is foundational on any spiritual path, is this basic understanding, or at least theoretical understanding, of the difference between matter and spirit, the difference between the soul and the material body, the difference between the seer and the seen. These are basic understandings. They're not, this is just ABC. This is the ABC of spiritual life. Mostly ABC is not even understood or taught. When it comes to even religions or philosophy, some indication is there, but not much clarity. Krishna is in, you can say, in very summarizing, in a very precise way, this ABC of the soul and the difference between the soul and the body. In text 16, Krishna says, those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, it exists, but its existence is only temporary. It's here 1 minute, gone the next, changing all the time. There is no endurance for the soul. We have nothing really to do with it. It's superfluous to the soul. It's like a vehicle which we're traveling in. Like we get in the car, we travel in it for some time. The body is like a vehicle. We're very attached to it. Our consciousness pervades it. But it's not actually the living being itself. It's a vehicle in which the living being is presently occupying. There is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. So the body is always changing. It never stays the same, not for a moment actually. And for the soul, it never changes in its essential constitution. It's eternal. The soul is we, that means we. When we say the soul, it doesn't mean my soul. We are the soul. The soul never changes. What changes is two things. One, the means through which we witness or perceive the world, and the phenomena with which we perceive. They're changing. And our impressions, our conclusions, our experiences, our happinesses and distress are due to the perception or the means by which we perceive contacting that which is perceived, and that creates a reaction which, according to our karma, according to our desire, will be experienced as happiness and distress. And that will go on ad infinitum in the material world, whether it's goodness, passion, or ignorance, whatever planet we're on, whatever species we're in. The same principle is there until we realize our identity apart from the means of seeing and that which is seen. So this is basic knowledge which Krishna is giving here, that the seer never changes in one sense. It's just that which is being seen, and because we identify with what we see through the means of seeing, this material body and mind, through which we perceive the world. And in this way we experience various forms of happiness and distress because of identity. If we don't identify with something, for instance, most of you have come here by some form of transport. Well, all have come by walking or car. How many came by car? Quite a few have come in a car. Some came by bus, maybe. Some may have living here, walked or whatever. Maybe other means, I don't, bicycle or something. We've all come. Now, in this case, we're friends. We're related to each other, no doubt. But if the next door neighbour, for instance, who you don't even know who they are, if somebody steals his car right now, does it affect us? Will it affect us? Somebody steals his car. It might create a little fear that someone will steal yours. But in of itself, will it affect us? Are you disturbed? Not generally speaking. Not generally. Maybe if they're your friend you are, but I mean if you don't know who it is, it's going on every moment. There's someone stealing cars somewhere, maybe in a city even, I don't know. But these things are going on all the time. It doesn't affect us really, directly speaking, at all, and only if we're connected to that person will it emotionally affect us. But if someone steals your car, how will you feel? Will you be affected? You go out the door now and your car's not there anymore. Hopefully it's there. You don't trust these Hare Krishnas, by the way. What will you think? What will you feel? Will you feel good? Probably not. I mean, you're whatever, you're a spiritual person. But in general, people will be really upset. Someone stole my car. Generally. I mean, of course, if the car's useless and you've got a good insurance policy, you might be happy. But in general, you're not happy. Someone stole my car, someone stole my house, or it's hard to steal your house. Stole your money. It's possible. But depends what type of house you got. Someone steals your money. You know, you look in your pocket, your wallet's gone. How do you feel? The purse is gone. How do you feel? Not sure. Not too happy, okay, it's pretty mild. If someone steals somebody down the street's wallet, you don't even know about it, and even if you hear about it, you might just be a little bit more cautious to make sure that you don't lose your wallet. But it doesn't affect you, really, because you don't have a relationship with that wallet or the person who says it's my wallet. Oh, that was interesting. Why did it make such a loud noise? It sounded like woo on here. So, it's identification. When we identify with something, you having to go?
Yeah. We live at far place, so we have to.
Oh no. Oh no. Hey, look, have you got this book at home? You haven't got it, have you?
No, I just moved in, so I didn't bring that with me.
Hey, Pramana, you go and talk to them. Here's the book. Go on. See them. Make sure they get some prasad before they go.
Shall I go into the
Huh?
It's there in the kitchen. I'll get some
Is it prasadam?
dry fruits.
Make sure they get some prasad.
I'll just be back.
Huh?
I'll just be back.
Yeah. Everyone can go.
No.
It's due to identity. Fear, happiness, distress, anxiety. You know, because we identify with, you know, that which we're going to lose anyway. Right? Going to lose it. So Krishna, if we identify with that which is eternal, as this verse says here, never changing, there's no need to be afraid. They have thus concluded the studying both. Next verse, 17. That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible, No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. And the next verse is related to that, so I'll read both of them. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore fight, O descendant of Bharat. Don't hesitate. That was his duty. It's not everyone's duty, isn't like that. That's his duty. Perform your duty, Krishna said. For another reason. That's mentioned in the next chapter, why you should do your duty. Knowing that this body is bound to come to an end anyway, Arjuna, so why are you lamenting over it? It's like chemicals. If we think the body is, if we know we're not the body, then there's nothing to lament. And if we think we are the body, and what is the body made of? What is it made of? What's the body made of? What's it made of? Tulsi, what's your body made of? What's the body made of? Atoms, chemicals, whatever way you define it. Huh? Chemicals. If it's made of chemicals, you take a bottle of chemicals, you pour it down the sink, you're going to start crying? Not really. So maybe it goes up in smoke. The body is made of chemicals. Sure. Because we're so identified with it and so attached to it, it's a little different, you could say, but it affects us intensely. But if we know we're not this bag of body, whatever it's made of, and different chemicals or atoms or different items, bones and blood and flesh and this and that, it's not a source of so much lamentation. The more we're self-realized, you could say. The next verse, text 19, neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge, for the self slays not, nor is slain. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't get caught up in karma. There are rules of right action and incorrect action, obviously. That's another subject which will be discussed also later on. But the basic spiritual understanding is the soul is actually not the doer. By desire, you could say actions are being done, but the actual action is carried out by the material nature, according to our karma and according to our desire. And different persons with different karmas will act in different ways. The responsibility does go back onto the living entity because it's our choice to be in this situation. And it's our choice whether we remain in this situation of ignorance or not. That is the soul's choice. It's not a physical or karmic cause. The next verse, text number 20. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. Now there may be slightly different translations, but it's the same principle. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Wow. We're not slain when the body is slain. We're unborn. Only when we say born, it means beginning. Death means end. For the soul, there's no beginning or end. We're eternal. Only the body has a beginning and an end. We enter into this body just like you enter into this room for maybe 1 or 2 hours, and then you exit this room. But that doesn't mean you don't exist once you're out of this room. You existed before you came in, and you'll exist when you leave. Hopefully. So this body is like that. We come in and we go out. Next verse, 21. O Partha, that's another name of Arjuna, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones. Next verse, that is. Giving up the old ones. Like when we change our dress, well, maybe we'd be a little attached to it, we don't like to, but it's not really a cause of lamentation. So the body is like a garment. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Next verse. The soul, 23. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. Text 24. The individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble, and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. If, however, you think that the soul, or the symptoms of life, will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. And we gave the example earlier on of chemicals. Next verse, 27. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Two or three more verses, and that will be the end of this section. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning. Created means, in the sense of having a material body. The soul is never created. So when beings, it refers to a living entity within a material body. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, that means when we're in this particular body, and unmanifest, again, when annihilated. So the body comes into being, the body lasts for some time, dwindles, and finally perishes. But the soul carries on. And there's no need for lamentation, Arjuna. Some look on the soul, text 29, as amazing. Some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. They say him, it just refers to the soul, not a male or female, it's reference to the living entity. Amazing, but to understand, to realize, that's another thing. And in text 30, the last verse we're going to read, O descendant of Bharat, he who dwells in the body can never be slain, therefore you need not grieve for any living being. And that's just ABC. Or to speak of the rest of the alphabet, or the rest of the science. Okay, questions? Answers? Any questions on the soul? Wouldn't it be nice to, if this science was taught more? Maybe. Well, we think it would be nice. Not everybody would think the same way, I'm sure. But certainly from the point of view of all the problems which we are faced with, will be seen in a different light. Many of the problems we are faced with, we wouldn't have to face, you could say. Such as, this war going on in Ukraine is based totally on bodily identification. Attachment, identifying with the body and identifying with this as mine, and so on and so forth. Different ideologies, all of which are temporary, based on our own conditioning. Economic aspects, so many things are involved, but it's all based upon a false premise. Understanding or failure to understand our actual identity or the purpose of human life. So many things due to this. Many of our behavior patterns also create all kinds of unnecessary imbalances in society. Yes?
I was thinking when you were asking about identity, in Irish, and I'm not an Irish speaker, but I don't know if somebody could perhaps correct me. In Irish, if you don't say what's your name, you say what name is upon you, and you reply, Sarah is upon me. And it's like words are so important. If we still have these old languages, that would be a reminder.
Yeah, it's coming from culture, you see.
Yes.
All these cultures, Gaelic language, and coming from a background of culture. More, they're all connected, but it's kind of like, I don't know if it's getting less or not, but it's certainly been lost in many cases. The actual, not just, let's say the knowledge, but even the terminology, which reminds us of something more than just a material identity. What name is, being given upon you or whatever it is. It's a simple thing. Anyone can understand it, but it reminds us, wait a minute, there's a different way of looking at it, but it creates a different perspective, even if it doesn't go much deeper. Still, It's a culture in the direction of understanding something more than just the physical aspect of life or the mental aspect of life. Very interesting. That's in
There's
Gaelic.
another little Hindu proverb that I just happened, if there's such a thing as an accident, to come up online today, and if I can find it on this phone.
You look in your own spare time, don't panic, you take your time, find it and read it when you find it. In the meantime, if anyone likes to ask anything else, please do. Yes, Alex.
Thank you.
Got a bit excited there at one point.
Just heard the instruction by Krishna, the wise, that laments neither for the living nor for the dead. I think I heard that when Prabhupada was discussing, one of his disciples mentioned to Prabhupada, you know, when Arjuna's son was killed, Abhimanyu was killed, Arjuna was grief-stricken.
Yeah.
He is supposed to be a self-realized soul. Why was he lamenting for the passing of his son? And Prabhupada simply said that it's natural for a father to lament the death of his son.
In this world.
Right. So I think the devotee thought that if you are if you are someone who has knowledge of the soul, automatically it means you no longer lament. But it turns like another example I could give is that when Bhishma Dev was leaving the body and everyone came to speak to him, first thing he said to the Pandavas that you had to go through. He was kind of how do you say? He was saddened by the fact that Pandavas had to go through all these tribulations, and they almost died as a result of these intrigues and whatnot that were
plots against them.
So instead of, before he even started giving them instructions, he expressed his sadness, his feelings.
Yeah.
So he was a self-realized soul, and he was about to depart this world.
Yeah.
But he, first of all, he expressed his kind of sympathy towards the Pandavas, and expressed his sadness that they had to go through all of this.
Yeah. Well, as you say, it's natural. We're all parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. Mam evangsa jiva loke jiva bhaktis buddha sanatana. So we all are related spiritually. So to see any living entity, we'll look at this from 2 or 3 different angles, but to see any living entity undergoing suffering, paradukkha dukkha, said the only suffering of the self-realized soul is to see the suffering of others. Whether they're self-realized or not, I mean others, meaning the self-realized soul sees others. He sees them equally in one sense, but at the same time he sees it with compassion, that we are in this world and we are having to go through sufferings. Now that's one thing, and the devotee of the Lord does not sit back idly to see other living entities suffering. But the cause of suffering is a little different than perhaps the usual understanding. The understanding of the cause of suffering is the fact that we have this misidentity and we've forgotten our relationship with Krishna. And of course consequently entangled in karmas. So no devotee, whoever is Bhishma or Vasudeva Datta or Jesus Christ or Haridas Thakur or any Buddha or any of those self-realized personalities, likes to see living entities suffer. What form of suffering is another thing, but nobody likes to see others suffer. That's one thing of the self-realized soul. Secondly, in the case with Arjuna, which you mentioned, the first thing from Bhishma's point of view, that's one thing. Now, another thing from Bhishma's point of view, of course the Pandavas are great souls. They are great souls. They are pure devotees. So the attachment to the association of pure devotees or self-realized souls may also be a cause of lamentation when they depart, because we're losing something very precious for our own self-realization. So that may be a form of lamentation, but it's based upon spiritual factors, not material factors. Now, in the case of Arjuna, when his son Abhimanyu was unrightfully killed in the battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna became very, as you said, very disturbed. But momentarily, it wasn't like an ongoing thing. He was recomposed. Sometimes these great devotees are acting in this material world, because if you're in this world, you have to play your part as well. But obviously, when somebody very close to one self, even if you are a spiritualist, as Prabhupada said, we are sentient beings. We have feelings. Even though we know we're not this body, feelings are still there in this world. I mean, when you see somebody suffer, don't you cry? Don't you feel that? When you see an animal suffering piteously, don't you feel sad? Every sentient being would feel sad. Even he knows that the soul is transcendental and the soul is not dying, but that soul is going through pain. That soul is going through torment, whatever reason it may be. And it brings sadness, it may bring tears to your eyes. You'll do anything you can to relieve that. This is a natural response. Materially, spiritually, whatever you may call it. Nobody likes to see others suffer. But the spiritualist knows that the solution to this is not just the temporary one. So you may sometimes experience temporary emotions over situations, especially when it's someone who's been let's say, killed irreligiously as well, and it's your own son. It's only natural, Prabhupada says, that Arjuna is, as you mentioned, is a sentient being and he has feelings. Otherwise, everyone else, yad charity shreshtas tadevechirojana, Krishna says, or whatever great persons does, common men follow in their footsteps. So, from another angle, Arjuna is teaching us that, it's not. Otherwise, people become completely callous and not care less. What difference does it make if I cut your throat or not? Now, it's not like that. That's not the point. We may have that understanding that we're not dying, but the conditioned soul doesn't have that understanding. People don't have that understanding, so we have to show how to behave in various situations, which would be appropriate for the gradual, as in the next chapter this is explained. One should continue to act in a way to show conditioned souls how they can act according to their position in a way they can gradually advance in Krishna consciousness. So, showing the Arjuna became quite a lot overwhelmed by lamentation, the loss of his son, but he very quickly regained his stability and his understanding of the situation and acted accordingly for the benefit of others. Just as when Krishna left the planet, of course Krishna at that time is, Arjuna was still present. Krishna is not an ordinary living entity, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And obviously when he leaves, there's a great lamentation, you could say, when he's no longer present before us. Arjuna was perplexed, overwhelmed. And it said that by remembering the instructions of Krishna, he regained his composure. So this is the point. Remembering, we may become overwhelmed, but then remembering the actual instructions of the Lord, and in terms of the nature of the soul and the nature of this world and so on and so forth, and how karma is involved with all actions and reactions, one can become composed again. So to help others to become self-composed and to understand things step by step, maybe not immediately, that's understood. All the time we're communicating with personalities who are going through various traumatic experiences. You can't necessarily expect an immediate change. One has to deal with it according to the situation. To try to comfort, to try to show compassion, to try to relate with the situation, help whatever way we can just by being around, and gradually helping to introduce the spiritual aspect. So it doesn't happen in most cases immediately. Even if we see in the case of Arjuna, there was a form of lamentation there for sure. But then very quickly it said he came to his clear consciousness again. So there's very many things happening at once here in terms of why. Ultimately is the will of the Lord that different devotees express different moods of compassion or response to situations. Part of the Lord's plan, either to help us to become closer to Him, to realize that we're not so advanced. One devotee said to me the other day, I was in London, and I bought some, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, this devotee, his house had been burned down. The next door neighbor had a barbecue, and someone out from the barbecue, the flames went and burned his house down. Luckily he didn't get injured, no one got injured. But his whole house was lost. It was nothing to do with him. It was a next door neighbour with a barbecue. Some sparks went over and caught the house on fire somewhere. We lost his house. He didn't realise, I mean, he's been practicing quite a while, how much it affected him. How much it affected him. He had a big realisation. He was very, very disturbed by the whole incident. We can say it's not surprising, but at the same time, he was a little surprised. He was so disturbed. But what did that do? It brought out tremendous compassion, or let's say service mood from so many others. Came forward. Within no time, he had shelter, help, this thing, that thing. And he was really appreciative of how, so it has many other results too, when these things sometimes happen, where we lose what we're attached to, and we become disturbed. I remember one time I lost my suitcase. I didn't lose it, it was stolen. And I just purchased all kinds of, I was in America, and someone had asked me to get this electrical equipment, a computer, $3,000 computer, special state. They were working in IT, the big thing. So I bought these things, they were in my case, so many things. It was locked inside a van, someone broke into the van, stole the case, stole everything I had except for my datas. They left the datas behind for some reason, Krishna's mercy. Everything else was gone, stolen. So when I came back, we were at a festival, I came back to the vehicle, someone else's vehicle, I was traveling with them. Oh no! Yeah, imagine how you feel, all gone, all gone. It's like, police came, investigate, nothing we can do about this happens all the time. Street, these kind of robberies in the city are regular, Birmingham. And we said, well, have a look here and there, different places, they throw what they don't want away. We went, nothing was there. And we gave, and then I had a great feeling after about an hour of detachment, freedom. So I was kind of feeling, well, must be Krishna's mercy somewhere or another here, I don't know. Whatever it is, I felt like relief. And then about an hour later, just as we were about to leave, phone call came, the police had found everything. They caught the theft, and then everything came back. Well, it was a long story, I'm not going to tell it all, it'll take about 20 minutes. But how everything came back, the police said, this is maybe once a year this happens, that we recover like this. So this is very extraordinarily rare. Every weekend we get dozens of these things going on, and maybe once a year we get such a recovery like this. It was almost miraculous. And like your mood changed, boom, 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 it's like... And I just realized, you kind of get these realizations of, it's not attachment or detachment, it's attachment to Krishna. That's the missing link. It's not feeling tolerance. Tolerance this is basic. Tolerating, understanding things in a spiritual perspective. Okay, it's beginning. But the real thing is to see things in relationship with Krishna. And Krishna puts us through these situations to help us to realize sometimes that, perhaps we're not quite there. We could perhaps be a little bit more Krishna conscious, And it's just it's an impetus, a lesson to learn, teaching us, impetus, and so on. And Arjuna, maybe he's also a teacher. He's teaching us by example how a conditioned soul should also behave, as well as his own natural affection to his pure devotee son. Any father will be attached, like anything. It's natural. It's only natural. It's like a part and parcel. Krishna is affected by the suffering of living entities. He's crying because we're in such a condition. The Supreme Father is crying in our condition, that we've come into this situation and we remain determined to stay in this situation in some cases. It brings sadness to Krishna's heart. That's why he comes again and again to try to wake us up, to try to open our eyes. It's a lovely topic. You found that quote?
I did, but it seems a bit shallow, so I'm not going to answer it. Because just when Alex mentioned about Abhimanyu and, the fact that he was killed in battle and Arjuna was upset, it's always been a sticking point for me because he was just a child, it wasn't like a 25-year-old man. Abhimanyu was, 15?
Yeah,
and he
teenager.
was a child in battle, and it's so poignant. I suppose it's the whole parent thing,
Natural.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not a parent, I mean, I'm not a parent as such, but I know, I mean, we all know, we've been a parent's lifetime after lifetime. No doubt about that. No, that feeling is within every living entity. It's only quite natural. We don't like to see anyone suffer. It brings sadness to the heart to see anyone suffer. But knowing that, as I said, is the solution, which is the real thing, the spiritual, helping people to realize their spiritual identity. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Okay, well, it's getting late. It's now 8:15, 8:10. We thank you all very much for coming this evening. And if you haven't, oh, they've gone. Where's the other one? Huh? There it is. Did that have a cover on it before?
Oh yes, I had to open it.
If anyone hasn't got a copy, please do. This is such amazing scripture. Changing the world, changing people's life is knowledge, education, which is the secret here of trying to help people to see things, not just I'm right, you're wrong, but to see things from a different perspective where we're all in different degrees of illusion and we can all get out of that illusion. And Krishna's trying to help us in this regard. So if anyone has a copy and you want another one, please don't feel shy. Or you want to distribute one to some friend or somebody, please take a copy. And I don't know what the donation is. If you haven't got one at all, please take one. Hare Krishna.